Now we're on to the hardware portion of this setup. First thing you have to do is you need to get the rotary attachment physically in the machine. On the left-hand side there's a label, and on the top of that label is a little scribe line. That scribe line gets lined up with the 24mm mark on the rulers on the left-hand side of the machine. Of course, the next thing to do is get the cable plugged in. Right now I'm looking at the right-hand side of the machine underneath the lid above the table. See those two little connectors? You need to make sure you tighten those up. And once you turn the machine on, the table is going to automatically lower down by itself. You don't have to worry about lowering the table. So make sure there's nothing underneath the table that will interfere. And the machine's going to do initialization, and as it turns on, it's going to rotate the cone so that little pin right there is pointing straight up. We're going to have to change that, so we want to rotate that pin so it's pointing straight down. There's two ways of doing this. This way is we're going to use the arrows. I push the arrow or the down arrow once, and then I'm going to hold it down. And when I hold it down, the cone's going to start to rotate. And I'm going to stop when it's pointing about straight down. The other way is to do it by hand. And it might be easier if you put a little mark on your cone so you can find out where the other end is. Most important thing is remember to turn it clockwise. Now I put a mark on mine. You can see that mark. That mark is 180 degrees of the opposite side of where the pin is. Now that we have that in position, we can go ahead and get our part set up. And when we put our part in, we want to put it in and try to get centered. So I can go ahead and clamp this in. And once I have it clamped in, I'm just going to try to get centered top to bottom, left to right on the little pad there. And go ahead and manually just grab the lens carriage, move it by hand, and point the red dot, which is hard to see, but I'm pointing at it right now. The red dot is left to right as I look at it in the center of my object. The only stuff I didn't show you was I pressed start, and of course the laser engraved it. And that's all there is to it. It's actually very simple to use. Good luck. Well, thanks to Murphy, things can and often do go wrong. So if you made a mistake, what you have to do is go back and check one of these items. The message would be, if you did something wrong, that you have an out-of-bounds error, that the artwork can't be printed on your object the way you have physically set it up. One of these items would be the problem. Either that you turned the rotary attachment by hand the wrong direction, in other words, you turned it counterclockwise, and it can't work that way. You're off the paper, so to speak. You did turn it the right direction, but you didn't turn it far enough around, and that's why I recommend going 180 degrees around. In other words, making that pin straight down. And that's why I put a little mark on the corresponding other side of my machine so I know where straight down is. Third would be that your lens carriage was not moved in the horizontal center of your artwork. You forgot to move it over. It just has no place to work. And last, your artwork is just too tall. If the artwork is too tall, and I refer to tall would be left to right because we're engraving our object sideways, the lens carriage would be going over the round attachment's far left end. If that's the case, it can't do that. It will say it's an out-of-bounds error. So, if you get that error, check those things. One of those things you did wrong.